As a top real estate professional, I'm sure at some point in your career, hopefully still now, you've had dreams about what it might look like to retire, to actually have a business that maybe could transfer to somebody else and you retire away on some beach. Now, maybe, just maybe, some of you have lost hope in that and thought about, boy, when I look at the cost of coastline, when I look at the cost of living in some of these more tropical areas, I just don't think it's going to be my reality. Well, in today's episode, I would encourage you to stay tuned because we are going to dive into that exact topic, help you understand that it's actually much more affordable than you think, but you still have to have an end in mind. You still have to work from a strategy. So today's guest is going to help us, who helps a lot of people really understand what's possible by actually living abroad when you're retired. And it's going to be an amazing episode. It's going to cause you to look differently at the country of Panama. So stay with us. It's going to be a great episode. So the big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry who have crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we create success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard. This is my co-host Stephanie Peck. And together we bring you the Think Bigger. All right, everybody. I'm excited about this episode. Stephanie Peck, my lovely co-host. Are you excited about this episode?
I am excited about this episode, especially when I put my big cozy sweater on this morning.
Yes, today's episode is going to feature Melissa Darnay. Let me just first say welcome, Melissa. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
And just for the folks that are watching this, whether live or recorded, the scene in the background that we're looking at with Melissa there is not a Zoom background. That is actually the Panama Canal. So pretty amazing that you'll actually see boats going by, and she lives in what some might call a tropical paradise. And Melissa, we're really excited to dig in and really help our real estate professionals who are listening to this recognize that, number one, they can dream again, right? When it comes to what retired life could look like.
Right.
And number two, also have them understand that the people that they serve, right? Whether they have a client database of 300, 400, 500, even larger, like Stephanie, that all of those people may also be interested in the topic that we're going to discuss today, which is having a tropical paradise abroad is much more affordable than maybe a tropical paradise here domestically. So with that being said, would you give us a little more background on you, Melissa, so we can understand your journey of moving really from Texas to Panama and how that's been for you?
Sure. I grew up in California and then lived in Texas for 15 years. California was so beautiful. And Dallas, even though it's an easy place to live, just doesn't have very much natural beauty. And literally, I was having these dreams every single night of living on the ocean once again. But looking back to where I had lived in Santa Barbara, the prices had gone crazy. It just wasn't even dreamable for me to go back to Santa Barbara. So I started looking at other places, and I literally tripped upon Panama. I don't think it had been on my radar at all. And then I knew someone who moved here, so I came for a visit. And when I landed, and this was back in 2010, I was shocked because I thought Panama was going to be dirt roads and roosters and a drug dealer on every corner. And when I landed, it was this glittering city of skyscrapers right on the ocean and such a blue, blue, blue ocean. And I thought, what? Is this Panama? So I came back and took a closer look, thinking to myself, okay, at the time I had lost my husband in a car accident, so I was single. Can I date in Panama? I didn't know anybody. Could I make friends in Panama? I needed to be able to make a living, so could I work in Panama? And after a couple weeks where I literally went stem to stern of the country looking around, I decided that the place for me was going to be very close to the city with the Panama Canal right behind me, and that I was going to make it work. So in 2012, I packed my bags, packed up a container, and moved to Panama, not really knowing if it was going to be for 6 months or 1 year, or forever. But at that point, I wanted an adventure, so it sounded great. I did come here specifically to work in real estate. At the time, the laws kept changing, so I was always just a little bit ahead of the curve. I am a licensed real estate broker in Panama, and I have, my work permit and all those wonderful things. I'm a resident, not a citizen, so I have all the same, legally the same things apply to me that apply to Panamanians. So all of that is wonderful. Now, a couple things interesting happened to me. First of all, I met what would become my husband about 3 days after I moved to Panama City. So that was one box checked off the list. And then I found out when you're an expat living in another country, it is so easy to make friends. Most people will meet more new friends in 1 month than they would in 5 years in their hometown. So all of a sudden, a month in, I had a love interest, I had all of these friends, and life was pretty good. Now, the big adjustment was I did not speak any Spanish. I literally knew 5 words. So I had to, take a crash course into Spanish. I think the Panamanian people are a lot more forgiving when your language isn't perfect than I know that we used to be, or I was as an American when somebody didn't know English. But it's been an adventure in all the best ways. So now here we are, 12, almost 13 years later, and I have my own real estate company and I help people fall in love with Panama. And for some people, that's taking a vacation. We offer vacation rentals. And for other people, that means investing in oceanfront property, which starts as low as about $160,000.
That's amazing. I know Stephanie and I, again, who living in the Pacific Northwest, both put sweaters on today. And we see Melissa there with the tropical beauties in the background where you probably got a couple of interested, at least vacation or families that may be interested in having a conversation after this. Stephanie, what comes to mind for you? I know you've oftentimes dreamed of living somewhere sunny and warm, although you've got such a great business here in the Northwest that it's hard to do that. But even the thought of traveling to a place like that, and potentially having a second home or potentially a permanent residence down the road, what additional excitement does that bring to you, I guess?
What I admire about what Melissa has done is to go into a place where she knows no one and even struggles with the language, learning the culture, and has been able to build a really great business through strategic referral partners.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear more about how you were intentional about meeting the right people that would help you grow your business.
So in the beginning, I knew a couple things. I had been a licensed real estate agent in the US, but I knew, gosh, I'm in another country. I don't really know. I'm going to come at this like I know nothing. So I worked for one company and then another in order to gain the experience of what it's like to do real estate in a different country. During those times, I realized that, I would need to become an expert on Panama. So one of the very first things I did was write a book about Panama that we update about once a year so that I could become an expert, because that's the way you become an expert, is writing a book. The second thing I did was really study the demographics. Who is it that wants to move to Panama? In the beginning, it was a lot of retirees who wanted a second home. Specifically since COVID, that demographic age has gotten a lot younger. We're getting people 30s and 40s instead of just, 50s and beyond, who want to have a second residence where they can spend some great quality time and enjoy life a little bit more. Sometimes they bring their laptop and work, and sometimes they're just pre-retired when they're here. But then when they're not here, they can rent out the property so that it's cash flow positive and they're not digging in their pocket for those carrying costs. And even though the carrying costs are very, very low here, who wants to dig in their pocket for those if you can have somebody else pay it?
Fascinating. What I love Stephanie's question. I want to delve a little bit deeper on that. Who were the key strategic partners? You mentioned them lightly, but are there others that you contact to really get established right in the country as a new professional? Who were the most helpful professionals that you found around you to help you to start to really integrate into that business economy and start to create some business out of, for someone who didn't even speak the language, right? It's pretty impressive
Right.
to think that you can go from that to having a booming business in a short period of time. But who were the professionals that were most helpful to you, would you say?
So like any real estate business, I connected with the lawyers and the insurance people and other professionals that are tangential to real estate to, one, make sure that they were in my Rolodex, and two, pick their brain, and three, get any referrals that they might offer. The most important thing that I did though was I kept that line open with the United States. Pretty much most of my clients at this moment come from either the US or Canada. So they're English speaking expats who want a second home in Panama. And it could be a second home, a fifth home, a 20th home, whatever it is, but they don't necessarily want to live here full time. So keeping those relationships with people in the United States was very important to me. I do have a real estate referral program where when real estate agents send me a lead, they get, 25% of the commission just by sending out an email or sending me a lead. So we do all the work and they get commission. And a lot of people have found that to be pretty easy money.
It sounds like what you did is identify all the players who also serve property owners,
Right.
right? Including real estate agents from other areas, really
Right.
began to build those alliances. And that's something both Stephanie and I really believe in. I authored a book on that topic. Stephanie has built an amazing business that is, I would say, near recession proof, if not completely recession proof, because of those strategic alliances that she's built around her, together with her incredible brand. But Stephanie, what else comes to mind for you as you think about what Melissa's done, and any other curiosities?
I mean, as a real estate agent, and knowing that a large portion of our audience is real estate agents, of course, we can be looking at this opportunity to meet Melissa as a referral relationship. But also, it has me thinking, how could I accomplish something like this someday without losing my business here locally in Oregon City, where I'm practicing real estate? How do I maintain this level of business and have location freedom to enjoy a lifestyle like Melissa's painting, which sounds very appealing right now? So that's what's got my wheels turning, is saying, how can I live this too? If I'm not a 30 something that has the luxury of a remote job, I have a business that people want to see my face here locally, but I also want location freedom.
And I think that's one thing here. A lot of people they learn how to do it. It's not something that, and I do think that's one of the good things that's come out of COVID is more and more people are available to do, for example, a Zoom type call. One thing I would do if I were you is get somebody to run the day-to-day in your business and then start taking it slowly, a 1 week a month, go to your vacation place and then lengthen that each time. And it's amazing to me how much I can get done with my clients that are not in Panama because they don't expect me to be in person. Therefore, we don't have to be. 99% of my business is not done in person. I might meet them quickly when I'm showing them property, but everything else is done remotely.
And I love the way you said what they expect, because we put that on ourselves. Our clients expect me to be the one to open the door, me to be the only one that answers the phone. But in reality, that isn't their expectation. We can set their expectation. I know, Justin, a lot of people have coached and served a lot of real estate agents specifically and other professionals that are positioning themselves this way. So what's the best advice for if you were to talk to me and say, hey, start working your business in this way so that in 5 years from now, when your kids are graduating high school, you've got some location freedom and you can get into warm weather in the off season, what advice would you give us?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that real estate agents make in particular, great question, Stephanie, is that they're as much as good as they are, they believe that people only want to work with them. And there is some small percentage of your database that's absolutely true. It is 100%. They love you, Stephanie, the person, right? Mm-hmm. And whoever you, the agent that's listening to this. And I think when the more that you can serve those people super well, excuse me, and you can also diversify your revenue to come from sources that love the standard of care that Pex Realty Group, for example, handles versus Stephanie, the person, right? The more that, because again, you'll always, because of who you are, you'll always have that group of people that love working with you. And as you take that and turn that into standards of care that others are able to duplicate, Now, and by the way, the first step in that isn't the operations, like maybe I just alluded to. The first step in that is actually the revenue, right? Revenue creates the space by which all business exists. And so having your revenue come from sources that aren't tied to your lovely personality, all of a sudden open that door for you to be able to generate revenue even when you're not there, because the revenue is tied to that standard of care. And one way that, as you know, Stephanie, I'm passionate about is helping people to create, as Melissa described she did, is a strategic referral alliance, right, with other professionals who also serve the property owner. And when you can have more and more of your business coming from that, I like to use the metaphor of, or the analogy of like a baseball team. When you remove the pitcher from the New York Yankees don't go bankrupt and close down their team, their franchise, right?
Right.
What they do is that they just bring in another pitcher. And
Right.
sometimes that pitcher has a stronger, better arm. And we don't like to think that, because we like to think that like we're the reason all this works. And sometimes we built a business where it is, unfortunately. But the more that we can begin to have almost a farm team, if you will, of up and coming pitchers, and begin to diversify first the revenue and then the operations to where other people are holding our same standard of care. Now, all of a sudden, you have the opportunity to create some location freedom. As I say that, Stephanie, does that, or yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
The one other thing I want to add is I decided a while ago that if I was going to grow, I couldn't do everything. I couldn't do first showings, second showings, that I only could be involved at the very end. So one of the things we've implemented is I'm not involved in first showings anymore. And so what happens is, so if they're, tire kickers, I haven't wasted my time. If they're serious, by the time they meet me, and I say this with all humility, I'm a little bit of a rock star because I've held myself a little bit back from them, so that when they finally get to me, they take my time more seriously.
You've elevated your status.
Yes.
With
And it's been a game changer, honestly, because we only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah, that's smart.
It's kind of that concept of replacing your time, right?
Yes.
And the more that we can identify and create procedures around that thing that people love, and then replace ourselves, that's the only way to scale.
That's right.
You mentioned, as I've learned more about you and your story, right? This finding the best investment properties down there. I think anybody that's a savvy business owner would ask the question of like, I want to do something that's also an investment. And you talked about some ways in which you could do that. Own a second home, rent it out when you're not there. How difficult is that to find and to do? I'm assuming they don't have maybe some of the same regulations that we have here that kind of ban, these vacation property, the short-term rental market. Is that true? And how difficult is it to find a property that's actually a great investment as well?
So there's a little bit in there I'm going to unpack. In Panama City back in 2012, they did pass a law banning short-term rentals under 45 days. Now, if you look at the timeline, that was really before the Airbnb boom. So they did that to protect, the hotels, because they were asking hotels to invest in Panama City when it was still people were renting their own properties through like VRBO. Most of those are still in the books, although now they have a couple properties that do come with a special short-term license. The key, and I think what we bring to the table as, people who've been on the ground for over, a dozen years, is we know the properties that are going to hold their value, that are going to increase in value, that are very rentable, that don't have those same restrictions. We know which properties there are. And if you look at the whole country, it's not the whole country. The number becomes a lot smaller on what those good investment properties are. So knowing that, we've got something on the beach that starts at $160,000. We've got something in this area starting about $300,000. We also have, penthouses for $1 million. So no matter what you're looking for, there is something for everyone. Where you're really going to save the money, for example, in the building I'm in, there's no property taxes until 2032. So there's still an exemption. So when you take away the property taxes, you have a small HOA of $250 a month, electricity, $100 a month, cable, $80 a month. That's your carrying cost.
Fascinating to consider what that could look like. Um,
Well, and what I hear from Melissa is just affirming what we believe is how important it is to work with a true local expert that understands the nuances of every property being different than the next.
That's
And
correct.
little niche pockets and different buildings have different rules and different opportunities that all need to be considered. So it is important to have a strategic partner in every area that, even in my area, I would say if it's on the other side of town, I may not be the best agent. Sure, my license allows me to do that, but I may not be the best agent for them because I don't know all of those differences of different properties. I was wondering for you also, Melissa, I know that you said a lot of your business is people from the US and Canada that
Mhm.
are buying second homes or relocation.
Mhm.
How are you strategically finding partners with other real estate agents in those areas? Because there are thousands of real estate agents across the US and Canada. How do you hone in on the right relationships?
We have started just in big cities that we know. So we've said, Houston, Dallas, Miami. That's where we started having this program. And then through word of mouth, as we meet real estate people, because there's a lot of real estate people that we meet just in different ways. Sometimes they're just coming down here for vacation because we do manage about 40 vacation rental properties. Sometimes, they've again heard about us through referrals. So now that's growing outside of those couple cities, but that's where we started.
So you identified areas that would most likely have people moving to your area.
Right. And
Mhm.
and a lot of the times if you look demographically at what we'll call problematic areas. So in Miami, the problematic area, the problem is hurricanes and the carrying costs. So when you get somebody who's been living in Miami and you compare the carrying costs here, I mean, they laugh at how low the carrying costs are. So that's an easy sell for us
Mhm.
because they know what their problems are. And in Houston and Dallas, the heat in the summer, that is, the problem. Now as we, look at Southern California, which is again where I'm from, the fires. So these are all problem areas when they look at some place that doesn't have natural disasters and it has such low carrying costs, all of a sudden it becomes a much easier answer.
I can imagine that there's people hopefully that are listening to this. They're like, wow, I had no idea. I've heard the concept that my money may go further in other countries. Right. And my intent, again, I think our intent with this is for anybody that's listening to this to be to recognize that whatever dreams that maybe even subconsciously you kind of shelved to say, I should probably tone it down a little bit. Right. Maybe that's not quite realistic. I need to have goals that are big, but not so big that I'm never going to achieve them. I don't want to set
Mhm.
myself up for disappointment. Right. And we're here to tell you on the Think Bigger Real Estate podcast that you should start to dream again. You should start to consider that the work that you're doing, if you're intentional about the way you build your business, and Stephanie, your questions were awesome, by the way. If you're intentional about the way that you do that, sooner than you think, you could probably begin, depending upon where your business is at, from a maturity standpoint, begin living that dream life before the time has passed, right? Before it's too late. So, any kind of final thoughts from either of you ladies as we kind of wrap up this topic and in give a final charge to our audience to go get after it, so you can pursue these incredible dreams that we've been discussing today?
Go ahead, Melissa.
If anyone is interested in my own personal journey, in the book Panama Uncorked, I do talk about my own journey, some of the hard things as well as the easy things and the fun things, because anytime you make a decision like this, there will be some things that are harder. My team and I, one thing that we specialize in is giving you a soft landing. We call it the white glove service because we want to do the hard things so that you can have it easy. And for any of you that are listening to this that are real estate people and you're thinking, gosh, I want to make more money this year. We have a marketing in the box program where we can help you make a little bit more money, and all you do is send an email.
That's pretty
Smart.
interesting.
Yeah.
Stephanie, what are your final thoughts?
I mean, that's just so smart that Melissa has made it easy for us to find opportunities to refer to her.
Right. Yeah. With just the introductions that an intentional real estate agent could make, it may very well fund their own journey to Panama, right? Think of it that way.
Exactly. We also offer deep discounts if a real estate person wants to come down and check out Panama for themselves. We will give you rock bottom pricing for a vacation rental. So basically our rate.
I'm listening. Got my attention there. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. What an eye-opening experience this has been to realize again what life could look like, right, in Panama. And I think having that view over your shoulder again, for any that are watching, that is the actual Panama Canal. There are actually ships going by in our background. That is not a pseudo background. That is the real deal. And what a beautiful country, and what a treasure the Panama Canal is, and how cool to be right there close to it, where so much industry happens right in front of you, literally right behind you.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Well, my invitation to everybody here is we're going to put in the show notes an opportunity for you to learn more about Panama. As I mentioned, I would imagine there are people in your database. In fact, I would bet on it. There are people in your database who have once dreamed of having, a kind of sitting with their feet in the sand type of retirement. And maybe this is an opportunity, and depending upon where you live on these cold, long winter days, to be able to say, hey, I just learned something that I think is pretty interesting. You should watch this episode, or let me share with you some insight about Panama. Let me know if I can ever make an introduction. And it could be just a fun conversation, if nonetheless, with those in your client database. And could lead to an interesting opportunity for you, both for your clients as well as for you. So please keep that open. Be watching the show notes. Again, we'll add in links to learn more about how to stay in contact with Melissa and learn more about Panama. So with that, in fact, let me do this one more question, Melissa, which okay. I love asking, which is, you're a big thinker. Obviously, you change a lot of things about the way that you go about doing life. What's one advice that you would have to those who are wanting to dream again and wanting to be a big thinker again? What advice would you give them?
Look, I became a widow in my 30s. So one thing that I know is none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So if you want to do something fun in your life, do it today. You may not have it tomorrow. The worst that can happen is you'll hate it and you can go back to the way it was. The best thing that can happen is your life will really change in the best ways possible.
Those are beautiful words. Beautiful words. So well said. And to everybody listening here today, our 3 simple words are this: go think bigger. Melissa, thank you so much for helping us do that today. We appreciate the inspiration you've given us.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Before you go, we've got one more invitation for you. We all know that listening to a podcast is not enough to help you to become a big thinker and high achiever. We must take action. So the very first step, think about one lesson learned from this podcast that you'd like to apply, and send it to us in the form of a direct message at Think Bigger Real Estate. We look forward to hearing from you and helping you to